It's officially time to start baking with our sourdough starters. Look at that growth. Look at that growth. It's consecutively for 3 days doubled in size and has gotten to its peak. You notice when it's at its peak for certain, when it's a little bit domey, it starts to fall just a little bit and it has some like dimplies on top. It's loaded up with air bubbles. I've done the float test, which is where you drop a little bit of your starter in a glass of water and see if it floats, and if it floats, it's ready to bake with. I've heard it's not completely accurate, but I did try it a few days ago when it started doubling again and it sunk. But yesterday I tried it before I fed it and it floated. So I can officially save the discard as well now that it's actually completely active starter, and I can start making bread with it now. But again, the best way other than the float test is when your starters rose 3 to 4 days consecutively and gotten to its peak. There are so many different discard recipes out there, so I'm super excited to start making those and sharing them with you guys. But when you're going to feed it, so the discard is what we've been throwing away, but now that mine is active, I can actually start saving it in another jar and just sticking it in my fridge until I'm ready to bake a discard recipe with it. But if you're gonna start saving your discard for your recipes, just take out, like every time you feed, when you're discarding that half into the trash, instead of throwing it away, once your starter is active, put that discard in a new jar, save it in the fridge, start literally stacking it up with the discard. You can use that for so many different recipes out there. And every time you make bread or whatever else with your active starter, you can keep adding that same discard for each feed that you're doing, that discard you're taking out. Keep adding it to that jar and it'll eventually like pile up. It lasts a long time, and eventually if you were to ever ruin this, you can turn your discard back into an active starter by feeding it, taking it out of the fridge, feeding it that same water to bread flour ratio that we have been doing since we were establishing our starters. Another thing I want to add is now that it's officially active, you can start keeping this in your fridge. If you don't want to make bread every day or make something with your starter every single day, keep it in your fridge. It can stay in there for months and months and months. I've heard somebody kept it in there for like 3 years and then they brought it out. It looked really, really nasty, but they could still use it. Just mix it up and feed it. But so if you aren't going to be making bread on a daily basis, keep it in your fridge. And when you do want to make bread, take it out, feed it, leave it on the counter and let it do its thing. It'll double in size and then you can make bread. Once it's established, you can keep it for a long, long time, as long as you don't completely use everything. But you can have like the littlest amount in your jar left. Like if you make a recipe and you're like, oh crap, like I need every single bit of starter in my jar. If you just have that tiniest little bit left, if you feed it that 1:1:1 ratio, it will still be fine. It will still grow into a starter. You can have the littlest amount and it maintains itself very, very well.